Here I am again, same day, about 15 minutes after my last recording. So here we go. You got two lectures this week, actually. And the first one, we really talked about Congress, the makeup of Congress, who's in Congress, how do they decide who's in Congress, what are their qualifications, etc., etc. But now we have to focus on the powers that Congress actually has to do anything. And in doing that, we're going to take some notes here. And I want you to follow along, of course, with the guided notes as provided, as per usual. But let's go ahead and get it started. All right, the legislative branch powers. So, the legislative branch is divided into two House bicameral legislature. The first House, as we've talked about, is 435 members. We've talked about the division of population, etc., etc. We've talked about the fact that the Senate has 100 members, 2 members per state. These are actually your 2 current senators. Now, the legislative branch specifically has all the powers to make laws. Laws start out as bills and must be passed through both houses of Congress. A bill must pass in the House of Representatives by a simple majority, but in the Senate it needs 60 out of 100 votes to pass. Once a bill has been passed, it must be signed by the president to become law. Now, the president can veto the bill by refusing to sign it. Congress, by a 2/3 vote in both houses, can override the veto. If they override the veto, the bill becomes law, and we're going to talk a lot more about this later next week. But specifically, what powers does Congress have according to the Constitution? So first of all, there are 2 types of powers. Express powers, the ones specifically listed in the Constitution, like the power to tax, power to borrow money, power to regulate trade and sell goods, power to print currency and make coins. There are more powers. Foreign relations powers, war powers, the power to declare war, power to determine who is a citizen, post office, copyrights and patents, weights and measurements, powers over territories, impeachment power. So, then there are also some implied powers. So these are powers not specifically listed in the Constitution, but implied through their authority in other ways. So, for example, Congress is given these powers through a part of the Commerce Clause, or of the Constitution specifically, known as the Elastic Clause, or the Necessary and Proper Clause. And the Elastic Clause is a section of the Constitution that says Congress shall make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. So why is this statement important? Think about the vagueness of it. Congress is given the authority to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. What is that? All laws that they think is necessary and proper? I'm pretty sure what you and I think is necessary and proper in the world is different from each other. So basically it's vague, and through its vagueness, it gives them a ton of power. So some things in the implied powers that are examples of: establish the Federal Reserve, make tax evasion a crime, establishing federal aid programs like FEMA, drafting an army, setting minimum wage and maximum work hours. So express powers listed in the Constitution, such as this. Implied powers not necessarily listed in the Constitution, like that. All right? So these are the powers of the Congress. So other powers, proving treaties, right? Senate gets to approve treaties, although the president gets to really make them. Creating and maintaining an army and a navy is an important part of the legislative branch. Declaring war. Believe it or not, Congress has the power to declare war, but really it's the president who directs the operations of the war. Regulating foreign and interstate commerce. It's important to regulate our trade between one another and other nations. Taxing and spending. Yes, one of the most powerful abilities of the government is to tax and raise money for its programs. Powers denied to Congress. There are actually also powers denied to Congress. For example, cannot suspend the writ of habeas corpus. Basically, police have to bring prisoners to court and explain why they're holding them. Now, I should mention this specifically. The Constitution says cannot suspend the writ of habeas corpus except in cases of, like, rebellion. And actually, the writ of habeas corpus was briefly suspended under Lincoln in, obviously, the Civil War, which was, of course, a case of gross rebellion. Passing bills of attainder, laws that punish people without a jury trial. No ex post facto laws, laws that make an act a crime after it's been committed. So I steal an apple, but then they make more crime about it later. Like, that's not allowed. Of course, that was probably a terrible example. And these are the powers of Congress. Short, sweet, and to the point. Not such a bad lecture, but it's important that we know what the powers of Congress specifically are, which is why you have a small activity where you make a book about the powers of Congress tomorrow. If you guys got any questions, go ahead and shoot me an email. Woo!